basically have a little bodice pattern. Little bodice, yes. Little tiny bodice. And then we have basically here, basically a shirt or a blouse front. Okay. Okay. We're going to be doing, the last two samples are about making darts. Okay. So this particular pattern here has got two darts on it, and these are referred to as tapered darts. Okay. So they're wide at one end, and they come to a point. Okay. The two long edges, the straight edges, those are called the legs of the dart. Okay. The point is called the vanishing point of the dart. So those of you who've taken perspective drawing know exactly what that means, vanishing point. But it's the point, it's where the dart comes to the point. Okay? Alrighty. And you can see that I have circled the points just to make certain that you guys get those. Okay? Though on this pattern it's not. Now this one is a different kind of dart. Okay? Who knows the name of this dart? Anybody know the name of this dart? It goes by two different names. There's two different names, so that means there's two possible answers. Oh, yeah, there you go. It's on the handout. Jared, yay! It can be called a fisheye dart, or it can also be called a contour dart. Okay? And basically, it's a dart that has points on both ends. Okay? So this is used for shaping anything that is meant to go from the torso down onto the hip. Okay? So that's what that is. So now, when you're working with this pattern, so last time we had the plaid and the stripe to help guide us. Now we've got a fabric that's got absolutely nothing on it except for my drawings on that. Okay? So I'm going to use the section that doesn't necessarily have the drawing. But basically when you're trying to lay your patterns onto your fabric, and we're only going to cut one each, but if we were going to cut two of each, we would probably come here, in this particular case, we'd probably come here and we would fold the fabric on the lengthwise or the grain direction and then match up the selvage or the finished edges like that, and then we would go ahead and start laying out. That's how you basically cut most things, is this way. Okay? But there are variations. Like if you're doing anything like a single shouldered, anything that's asymmetrical, you have to cut singly. If you're going to be cutting anything like on the bias, generally you cut bias one piece at a time. Okay? So here we go. So we're going to take our pattern here, all right? And we're going to just do that and we're going to cut it out, right?
No.
Why would we not want to do that?
Inefficient.
Inefficient, wasting, but the big reason why we won't do it,
It's not on grain.
it's not on grain, so that means it's never going to fit the way we want it to.
The poor
Okay?
grain.
So a lot of people make a big mistake. They go, okay, I'll lay it that way. Okay? Now, the last time when I was talking about the way fabrics are woven, okay, the grain has got the most tension on it, which hence produces the most strength in the garment. So generally speaking, we always want the grain to go up and down, or running basically the verticality of the body. Okay? And when you place it this way, all of a sudden the cross grain is now running up and down, which means that inherently the garment has been weakened. Okay? Also, because usually the cross grain moves this way, which helps to shape the body better, now we've lost the shaping mechanism around the body. Okay? Now, you can do that if your pattern dictates it. Okay? But you have to make certain that you take that into consideration. Sometimes you have to back the fabric, you have to add interfacing to certain areas, and sometimes it really makes no big a difference because it's, 4 nights of opera and only one performance for each person. But yet you have to make 4 of the same outfits anyway. Okay, so basically when we place these patterns onto the fabric, we're going to want the vertical of the garment to run the grain of the fabric. Okay, so we want to lay it that way, and then we'll come here and we'll go ahead and we'll lay this piece over here while we're doing this. Okay, now, all of us have pretty good eyes, some of us better than others, but most of you will not have a good eye yet. Okay, so you want to make certain that when you lay this on here, you use some sort of measuring device to make certain that your grain is indeed on grain. Okay, while you still have the selvage, it's really easy to figure this out. So basically, if we come here and we measure the distance from the grain line on the pattern over to the selvage, we'll see that basically it's about 2 1/8 inches. So then I come down here to the other end of the pattern, and it's 2 1/16 of an inch. So that means I need to correct it. Okay, so I can either push it out or I can push it in. I'm going to push it in just a little bit. Oh no, I pushed it in way too much. There we go. There we go. So that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to come here, and I'm going to go ahead. We're going to go around the pattern, and we're just going to use pencil on this. Oops. It's a brand new pattern. I'm already. Oh well. Okay. So I've drawn around the perimeter of the pattern. Now we're going to come through, and we're going to go ahead and mark out these little punch outs. Oh, that one's missing. Oh, that's not a good example. I forgot that. Could you, I see that little sort of shibori bag right there? The indigo one? Yeah, that one. That's shibori, by the way. Yeah. Right, isn't it? I think it is. Looks like it. Looks like it. These little things are called notches, okay? And what notches are designed to do is to help aid in the sewing process. Whether, in this case, this notch would be used to help you to sew a sleeve in, okay? These notches here are going to help us sew our darts, okay? But we then, on these darts, we want to go ahead and we want to draw in the point. Now, you see this hole here? That's for hanging on like this. Do not have to draw the hole there. That is a waste of time. Waste of time. Okay, so I forgot one notch, didn't I? Well, there we go. That's it. That's good. There we go. Okay, great. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw our darts. And I usually draw my darts starting at the vanishing point, and I draw out like that. And I'm going to go ahead and draw out all the way beyond the stitching line. Okay? Because now what I'm going to do, I need to do that one.
Seam allowances included in these? No.
We're going to draw seam allowances on everything now. Yeah, up until now, seam allowances were included, but now they're not. So we're going to be adding seam allowance because, theatrically speaking, we do a lot of patterning here that doesn't include the seam allowances on there. So you're going to look back, refer to the pattern, and it's going to tell you how much seam allowance to add on each edge. Okay, so up here at the shoulder, it says 3/4 of an inch. Around the neckline, 1/4 of an inch, and this is the way I do it with a curve. So I'll come here like that. I'm not being very fancy with the seam allowances. I'm not trying to like flare them out or do anything like that. Just going to add them directly like that. Okay, 1 inch. Okay, I can use the edge of my ruler, but if you're having trouble, you can come here and measure an inch. Measure an inch, and then go ahead and connect the two lines like that. All right, I'm going to come here to the armhole. It says 1/2 inch. This is why the grid ruler becomes so important, because it's a quick way. Yeah, yeah. Then we're going to do 1 inch on the side seam. And then at the bottom, we're going to do 1 inch as well. When we do the bodice project, I'll talk a little bit more about how you do things like bump out the seam allowances so that when you sew it, it looks better and weighs better. But for these sewing projects, I don't bother with that. Okay, so that's that. And then on this piece here, we have 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. And you are indeed evaluated that you paid attention to the seam allowances. So if you don't cut the right seam allowances, you are marked down points. Because this is not just about sewing, this is also now about cutting and marking. Okay? And 1/4 of an inch. There's lots of standards in terms of seam allowances. Generally speaking, the fashion industry uses either usually 3/4, 1/2 inch, or 1/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch is usually reserved for things like zippered edges, anything that will require closure in it. 1/2 inch is the standard seaming, and then 1/4 of an inch is for anything with enclosed seams, right? Am I correct? 3/8 of an inch is knitwear, usually, right? Am I correct about that? Yeah, knitwear is done in 3/8 of an inch because it's fed through the overlock, and it's designed to cut just a little bit of, cut that 1/8 of an inch off in the construction process. Okay? Alrighty, just as a sort of point of reference. Now in theater, we use all sorts of wacky seam allowances. You know, we like build things with like 2-inch seam allowances and 5-inch hems and things like that. And it sort of all depends on how the garment is going to be used, not only in its current state, but how it might be used in the future. Because we build things and we build them to be repurposed and reused over and over and over again.